Welcome back to O-Level Oasis, your complete guide to mastering O-Level Biology 5090 in detail according to the syllabus requirements. We are currently studying Chapter 19, Relationships of Organisms with One Another and with the Environment. In today's lesson, we will begin Unit 19.2, which focuses on nutrient cycles. This unit explains how essential nutrients are continuously recycled through living organisms and the environment, allowing ecosystems to function and sustain life. Throughout this lesson, we will cover every syllabus specification one by one in a simple, detailed, and easy-to-understand manner. By the end of this unit, you will have a clear understanding of all the concepts required for your O-Level biology examination. So, without any further delay, let's begin with our first specification. We begin with specification number 1, which asks us to describe the carbon cycle, limited to photosynthesis, respiration, feeding, decomposition, the formation of fossil fuels, and combustion. So, let's begin by understanding what the carbon cycle is. The carbon cycle is the continuous movement of carbon between the atmosphere, living organisms, and the environment. Carbon is an essential element found in all living things because it forms the basis of carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and many other biological molecules. Since the amount of carbon on Earth is limited, it must be constantly recycled so that it remains available to support life. One of the main ways carbon dioxide is removed from the atmosphere is through photosynthesis. During photosynthesis, green plants absorb carbon dioxide from the air and use sunlight to convert it into glucose. This glucose is then used to produce starch, cellulose for cell walls, proteins, pigments, and many other substances needed for plant growth. In this way, atmospheric carbon becomes part of the plant's tissues. The carbon stored in plants is then transferred through feeding. Herbivores obtain carbon by eating plants, while carnivores obtain carbon by eating other animals. As organisms feed on one another, carbon moves through food chains and food webs, becoming part of the bodies of different living organisms. Carbon is returned to the atmosphere mainly through respiration. Plants, animals, and microorganisms all respire to release energy from glucose. During this process, glucose reacts with oxygen to produce energy, carbon dioxide, and water. The carbon dioxide produced is released back into the atmosphere, allowing the carbon cycle to continue. Another important stage is decomposition. When plants and animals die, or produce waste, decomposers such as bacteria and fungi break down the dead organic matter. Initially, the organism's own enzymes begin digesting its tissues, after which scavengers may feed on the remains. Finally, bacteria and fungi complete the decomposition by releasing enzymes onto the dead material and absorbing the simpler substances produced. As these microorganisms respire, they release carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. At the same time, important nutrients such as nitrates, phosphates, and sulfates are returned to the soil or water, where they can be absorbed again by plants. The rate of decomposition depends on several factors. Higher temperatures increase enzyme activity, speeding up decay. Moisture is essential because decomposers require water to function effectively. Oxygen also increases the rate of decomposition by allowing aerobic respiration to occur. Sometimes, decomposition does not take place completely. When dead organisms are buried in conditions with little or no oxygen, their carbon becomes trapped instead of being returned to the atmosphere. Over millions of years, heat and pressure convert this stored carbon into fossil fuels such as coal, petroleum, and natural gas. Similarly, some organisms produce shells or exoskeletons containing carbon, which may also become preserved as fossils. The carbon stored in fossil fuels is released again through combustion. When fuels such as wood, coal, oil, or natural gas are burned, the carbon they contain reacts with oxygen to form carbon dioxide. This process releases the stored carbon back into the atmosphere. Fossil fuels are therefore long-term stores of carbon that originally came from ancient plants and other organisms. Overall, the carbon cycle demonstrates that carbon is constantly being recycled rather than created or destroyed. A carbon atom may begin as carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, become part of a plant during photosynthesis, move into an animal through feeding, and finally return to the atmosphere through respiration, decomposition, or combustion. This continuous recycling ensures that carbon remains available to support life on Earth. As shown in the diagram, carbon dioxide is present in both the atmosphere and the oceans. Green plants and algae remove this carbon dioxide through photosynthesis and convert it into organic compounds, forming vegetative biomass. Animals obtain this carbon by feeding on plants or other animals, transferring carbon through different trophic levels. Both plants and animals release carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere through respiration. When organisms die, decomposers break down the dead material, returning carbon dioxide to the atmosphere while recycling nutrients into the soil. Some dead organic matter becomes buried and, over millions of years, forms fossil fuel deposits such as coal, oil, and natural gas. Human activities, especially the burning of fossil fuels and industrial processes, release this stored carbon back into the atmosphere. The diagram also highlights nutrient recycling within ecosystems, where decomposers return mineral ions to the soil for plants to absorb again. However, excessive combustion of fossil fuels and deforestation increase atmospheric carbon dioxide levels and reduce the number of plants available to remove carbon dioxide through photosynthesis, contributing to climate change.